Good evening, everybody. Hey, it's about 5:30 on a Monday evening. Got another phone call getting ready to make after this about a customer in the Massachusetts area, owns a junk removal and moving business. We're about to start doing Google pay-per-click management with, most likely anyway. We're expecting to. What I want to talk to this is Lee Godbold with Junk Removal Authority. What I want to talk to everybody today about is failure. It's failure, and all of us have experienced failure of some magnitude in our life, and we'll experience some sort of failure, be it in on any number of things this year. There's no doubt you're going to have times you got small amounts of failures, times you got large failures. Something a lot of people don't like talking about. They don't like thinking about it. They don't like talking about it. And I found that quite often failure has kept me out of trouble. I've learned a bunch from it. So failure can have some positives and negatives. Past failure is mainly positive. I treat my failures, it gives me an opportunity. It allows me to, one, slow down before I make a decision sometimes, just enough. I've always been one. Some people are the exact opposite. They're real slow to make decisions. I've always been super fast. And some decisions need to be made quickly, but some of them you need to slow down on. You need to process what you got. You might need to put it out in spreadsheets where you can really analyze the positives and negatives to a situation, the opportunities, and is it something that you're willing to really commit to? Do you have the time and the resources to really commit to it? Is it going to detract from what you already have going on? And that's something if you're a true entrepreneur, you're always going to come up with ideas. You're always going to be having ideas. You're always going to be seeing opportunity. And one of the best things you can do as an entrepreneur is not pursue those opportunities. And but if it is a really good one, you want to be able to jump on it, and you want to be able to tackle it, and you want to be able to commit to it. So past failures, and learning from other people's failures can hopefully help you make a great decision. That's why I'm making this video right here, is trying to help you prevent you from making those same mistakes that I've made in the past. So here's some of the mistakes I've made that I would call failures, but not really. And I call them, and I use the word mistake very hesitantly, because without those mistakes, I wouldn't have the knowledge or the experience to make decisions now that are proving to be correct. Decisions now, choices now that are working out, that are leading to success. Without the past failures, I wouldn't be making those same decisions. So I hesitate to call them failures. They were failures at the time, but if I look back at them, they really have worked out well. So number one was racing. I got into racing when I didn't have the money. I had no business to be racing. I was making about $15,000 or $20,000 a year. I had no business to be out there in racing. And I've always won. I didn't want to start, I didn't want to start with a lower class. I could have gone out and I could have been in a division that's much, much cheaper to run. Instead, I go out there and I try and run late model stock. I've got $15,000 in the car. Some of these guys that I'm competing against have $20,000 in shock absorbers. So, I'm sitting out there in engine and car and all $15K, and there's guys that have a set of shocks that cost $20K. And there's wasn't a chance of really competing at all with that amount of money. So I wasted quite a bit of money, had a lot of disappointment, a lot of long nights, a lot of broken parts just because it was a real cheap car, and really didn't have the money to fix it. So I made do when I could. On the racing end of things, I really learned perseverance. I learned how to deal with disappointments. There were plenty of disappointments in racing. There'd be times I'd be running second, third, and the car would overheat, or the rear end would go out, or had a tie rod break. I mean, just multitudes of problems that occurred. And every time I'd pick up and I'd bounce back, I'd fix the problem, and I'd get back out there. Until I realized after about 2 years of doing it, this just isn't working out. I know I can drive. It's like I know I've got the driving talent to compete with all these guys out here, but I'm sitting here trying to compete with a $20,000 car when the guys up front have an $80,000 car. And just making up that difference. I mean, at $20,000 or whatever, I might be able to be within a tenth of a second on their lap speeds. I might be able to run at times, a decent but then something would break and I'd fall back and wasn't making any money, losing money every race. It wasn't like, by getting out there and running those speeds, I was getting more money, which I could reinvest back in it. It wasn't. It was costing me every time I raced. But it helped me learn perseverance. It helped me see a job through to the completion. So, I'd be out there till 1, 2, 3 a.m. Or later, fixing something up so it was ready to race the following night. And there's nothing else in my life before that I had to do that there was a deadline I had to meet. The car had to be ready to run. So racing is a mistake I've made. I don't really consider a mistake though. So one thing I did do correctly is once I realized a mistake, I got out of it quickly. I sold everything I had, everything but the pickup truck sold. That's when I started junk removal. So without racing, I might never have really gotten into junk removal because maybe I never owned a pickup truck. I'd have kept my Camaro. So, it was a mistake, but that mistake turned into an opportunity that was pursued and has worked out pretty damn well for me. And for this entire organization we've built. And we employ about 40 people now between Junk Removal Authority and junk doctors. So, without racing, there'd be 40 people that maybe not aren't unemployed, but maybe don't work for us now. They're not in this particular job that the majority of them like. So a lot of decisions came around racing. Had I not made that mistake, if you want to call it a mistake, then none of this would have happened. Another mistake we made was shredding. We opened up a shredding business. With just a year and a half into our current junk removal business, we go out and we open a second business that's shredding. This, we had like 1 or 2 trucks at the time on junk removal. I think we had 2 trucks at the time. And we were looking to grow. We should have been investing our money into growing the junk removal brand. That's what we should have been investing our money in, is growing that junk removal brand, not going out into additional service. Making that pivot into another service is extremely hard. Now, there are times to do it. Once you're established, you've got, right now, if we want to go into separate business, if we didn't have Junk Removal Authority, let's say, this is one of the things we considered before we started JRA is, hey, we could do another service. We could get back into shredding. We could do a cleaning business. We could do a moving business. This would be a good time to pivot. We have a lot of resources in place. We already have call centers to answer phone calls. We've already got a bookkeeper to keep up with the books. We've got invoicing software. We've got trucks. We've got guys. It would be a great time to pivot into a moving business, to pivot into offering dumpster rental. Instead, we went the JRA route, which is still similar, still involves junk removal very much so. Everything about JRA is junk removal. So we made a pivot into an additional service while we were able to use our current resources. When we started shredding, we didn't have that. I was still answering the phone all the time. I was keeping all the books. We had just a few guys, not enough certainly to do shredding. Shredding requires different types of employees. You must have CDL drivers for shredding. Instead of hiring a lot of guys that are college age, you've got guys in their 30s and 40s generally, plus for shredding. It's a completely different setup. Had we had the office stuff set up, had we had the call center, had we had the bookkeeper, the software, and we just had to go out and hire more guys and learn the business, then that'd be one thing. But we didn't have any of that set up. We jumped into it far too soon. So that has helped me from now on to understand that don't diversify into other services too soon. There's a lot of great opportunities in the current business you're in. There's no way if you've been doing it for a year or two that you've hit your ceiling. You're just getting started. 2 years in, you are just getting started. Maybe just getting started. It might be year 3 before you really get rolling. Junk removal, there's a good 5 years of really rapid growth if you hit it hard, and probably more. I'll sit there and talk about right now a current example. Is for a while, the last several weeks, we've been considering on JRA, how do we pivot into other services? And then, what we kind of say is, what I got to thinking is, all right, this pivot's going to be tough because we're experts in junk removal. We're not experts in these other types of businesses. We're going to have to start these other types of businesses or partner with somebody that knows these things inside and out. It's going to be a lot harder to reach people, to get them to buy into the system, to understand what we have to offer if we're not an expert in that field. Then I got to thinking, all right, well, 1-800-GOT-JUNK has 150 locations. We can probably work with twice that many people. And so it's become our goal now, our obsession now is going to be to get every single junk removal business owner and company in North America to know Junk Removal Authority. Everybody knows Got Junk. We want every business owner to know Junk Removal Authority, that we provide that much value, that much information, that everybody knows us. That's our goal. So instead of pivoting into another service, we're going to double down on junk removal, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, mailers, anything we have to do to get everybody in the junk removal space to know us. That's what we're going to do. So instead of going in and trying to make a pivot into another service, what we've done is we're doubling down on what we're good at, what we understand. There's a huge potential there. There's no reason to diversify into additional services yet. Once everybody in junk removal knows us, maybe. But until then, that's that we need to focus in on one thing. And that failure, that mistake from shredding, had we not made that, then there's a good chance we'd have followed that up with a mistake by maybe pivoting into another service too quickly. Very, very good possibility of that. Another mistake we made was Ask Your Neighbor. AskYourNeighbor.org was a site that I spent about $25,000 on developing. It was going to be a kind of another Angie's List type deal, where people would search for service providers. They'd see ratings, but the difference is you could actually see your friends. It'd sync with Facebook, so people those reviews would pop up first. So you trust your neighbor, and that was the kind of the theory behind it. And I think it would have done great if I had the time to. Instead, I spent $25,000. I built the site, and it's like junk removal got even busier. We hit up a couple big contracts. It's like, damn it, I don't have the time, and I don't really want to build one of these. So that was $25,000 that was wasted. Again, though, maybe it wasn't wasted. We learned stuff through Ask Your Neighbors. It kind of reaffirmed that mistake I'd made with shredding, and we went off and made it again by starting something that was completely unrelated to what we were currently working on. So we want to get those multiple income flows. We want to grow, but we don't want to do it if we can't piggyback off of what we've already built. Ask Your Neighbor wasn't piggybacking. Shredding, at the time, we didn't have the resources to go in. We could do it now and do it well, but then we didn't have the resources we needed at that point. That knowledge and all those mistakes I've made has helped me understand. I mean, instead of going the franchise route, everybody franchises. Instead of going the franchise route, we went a different route. We went kind of we went the path that wasn't traveled. Making those mistakes helps me push forward. I've made mistakes, I've survived, I've kept doing it. I've learned from those mistakes. I've realized those mistakes are probably have worked out pretty well for me. So it helps me push forward when I get a little pushback. I get some pushback. I've overcome mistakes already. I'm gonna keep pushing forward. It makes me realize the worst case scenario, I'm gonna survive it. Again, we've made those mistakes. If it doesn't work out, we're gonna find a way through. If you don't have the experience of failure, you might be a little hesitant to get out there and try it. Now, it can go the other way too. It could be because you failed, you're too hesitant to try, and that's a negative. That's when failure can be a negative. But sometimes it's not bad. You really need to step back and think about, what you're doing. One thing I can tell you 100% is on the shredding company, on Ask Your Neighbors. I wasn't committed to them. If I'd been committed to them, I'd gone in and gone in full time, gone all in, seen it through. Had I been able to see it through, we'd have made those businesses successful. But the problem is, at the time, it probably would have made our junk removal business suffer, because it would have removed me from a business at the time when the business really relied on me, because it wasn't where it needed to be to make that next move, go into that next business. So you're going to have to, if you're going to do any of this stuff, you're going to have to commit. So sometimes don't rush into these decisions. Create spreadsheets, create positive and negative. Do pros and cons analysis. Do what you have to do to make a wise decision. You can talk with some people, but sometimes talking with a couple guys might help, but a lot of it's going to be decision you need to make. It's going to be time that you need to make. Once you make a decision, be a little hesitant going into it. Once you make a decision, be willing to freaking commit. Be willing to spend money. Be willing to go all in. Be willing to not have an exit strategy. Why are you going to start something that you think you're going to believe there's a possibility you leave it? You've got to go all in if you're going to make this stuff successful. If you leave yourself an out the first time of resistance you have, you're going to take that out. You're going to take that exit. You're not going to follow through and see this thing to success. When you go all in, the price of failure becomes a lot higher because of the time you spent and the money you've spent, and the chance of you succeeding is going to go way up because you're going to push through resistance. You're going to have resistance no matter what you try. There's going to be resistance. You need to have that commitment where you're going to pull through. So here's what I want to challenge all of y'all to do. Every single one of you watching this video right now, every single one of you that's made 15 minutes into this video on failure, you've all had failure at some point or another. Don't learn from that failure. Don't become fearful because of it. Learn from it. So any of y'all thinking of getting into junk removal, thinking of renting out dumpsters, thinking of getting into moving, thinking of doing something different than what you're doing now, chasing an opportunity you've discovered. Number one, that's great you found that opportunity, but is it right now? You need to really consider, evaluate these decisions that you're about to make. Determine, is it right for you? There's a good chance it didn't. There's a good chance you don't need to pursue it. But if you determine it is right for you, if you go through spreadsheets, you go through pros and cons, you think about it, you determine it's right, freaking go all in. Dedicate all the money you have, pour towards it. All the time and energy you've got, spend on it. Make it work, see it through. If you get out there and you spend enough money and get enough people to know you in a good market, and you dedicate enough time, enough blood, enough sweat, enough tears into something, it's going to be successful. You're gonna fail when you don't go all in. If you go all in, the chance of success is a lot higher. Hey guys, if we can help you in any way, check us out at junkra.com. You can always email me, lee@junkra.com, and call us 919-617-1975. Hope y'all found this video to be successful. Hope you don't consider it to be a failure, and hope you're able to apply it. Talk to everybody real soon. Y'all have a great night. Thanks.